Since you clicked on this video, you know the struggle. You've probably asked yourself multiple times, why is sight reading so difficult? Or, maybe something a little saltier. Because sight reading, even things that look and sound extremely simple, can feel infuriatingly difficult. And again, because you're here, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that you understand this struggle, that you've had some sort of inner narrative that maybe goes something like this. I can't believe that I'm having so much trouble with something that's so easy. Why am I so bad at this? What's the point? I'm never going to be able to do this anyway. Now, none of these statements are actually true. This is just frustration talking. And frustration is completely normal when we're trying to learn something new, when we're developing new skills, especially when it's something that you really want. When you know what you want and you can see it right in front of you and you just can't quite seem to crack the code, it feels infuriating, like I said before. When my dog, Wolfie, was trying to figure out this toy that we got him, he went through a whole range of emotions. First, there was excitement because there were treats involved, but then it quickly went through phases of apathy, annoyance, and no small amounts of screaming. Now this might sound like a silly analogy because this is a dog who just really wants some treats, and you are a human who really wants to be able to sit down and make beautiful music at the piano, even if it's something that you haven't practiced before. But it actually boils down to the same reward systems in the brain. But let's come back to our opening question. Why is sight reading so difficult? It really comes down to the fact that playing piano in and of itself, when we're not sight reading, it's something that we've already learned and studied. Playing piano is an extremely complex skill. There are so many things that you have to master in order to be able to play the piano fluently, and this is assuming that it's something that you've practiced already and put the time into. We have 88 keys on the piano, we have 10 fingers, 2 hands, our hands are mirror image, so we don't even have the same fingerings if we're playing the same pattern at the same time. We have different notes, we have different patterns, you're probably going to want to play with pedal, you need to figure out the rhythm, you need to keep everything steady. There's a lot going on. Not to mention that you probably want it to sound nice and not just mechanical with the right notes at the right time. You want to make music. It's a lot. And to really make sure I'm bringing my point home here, I'm going to remind you that's all that you have to do when it's something that you've already practiced. It's something that you've already learned. You know how it's supposed to sound. You know what's going on. You've spent the time really developing everything that you need in a piece. And when you're sight reading, you have the pleasure of doing all of that on the fly. Every single element is a surprise. Sure, you can scan through the music and look before you leap, but there's still this element of my fingers have never done this, and literally none of it is going to come automatically. That's why sight reading is hard. I wish I could promise you that there were a way you could wake up tomorrow morning and start sight reading Chopin etudes, but that's just never going to happen for anyone. There's a lot that goes into it. There are a lot of moving parts. And if you didn't have to work for it, if you didn't have to earn it, would it really feel worth it in the long run? The best real world parallel that I could invent for this is trying to read a poem in a foreign language at sight, something you've never seen before. You kind of speak the language, but maybe not fluently yet, and you're trying to master complex choreography at the same time. You're going to feel frazzled. So that's why it's difficult. But there are people in the world who can go to the piano and sit down and see something for the first time and sight read fluently and confidently. So it is possible, but then the question becomes, how do I make that possible for me? I would like to take a moment here to share a quote from Marcus Aurelius. He wrote in his journals, "Do not think that what is hard for you to master is humanly impossible. And if it is humanly possible, consider it to be within your reach." So remember, you can do this, you just need the roadmap. And to make sight reading humanly possible, because it is humanly possible, it's not some superhuman skill that only certain people can master. To make this humanly possible, to make it feasible for you, you have to have the patience to master the essential skills. And that may not be what you want to hear. You may be looking for a shortcut, and the shortcut is to start simpler than you think you need to really go back and shore up the essential elements of reading. And if you do that, if you have the patience, if you dedicate daily time to mastering simple skills so that they're automatized, then you can sit down and start to read with a lot more fluency. Of course, if you try to improve your sight reading with Bach preludes and fugues, you are going to get sick and tired and frustrated. You are going to hate it. You're going to hate every single second. It's going to feel impossible. It's going to feel completely unmanageable, and you're just not going to do it. You'll sight read once, maybe twice, and then you won't look at new sheet music in a sight reading context for months at a time. But if you dedicate daily time to improving these skills, you will get there. You just have to start with material that's simple enough for you. I mentioned this last week, and I'm going to keep bringing this point home. The benchmark that you're looking for is when you're sight reading, I want you to be hitting something between 80 and 90% accuracy. If you're getting every single note and staying completely steady the entire time, your material's too easy. If you're not able to keep a steady beat and you're still missing half the notes, your music is too hard. You need that sweet spot of just enough challenge that you miss a few notes, that you hesitate every now and then, but by and large, you're able to keep moving forward and keep hitting the right notes to perform with enough accuracy that you can recognize what it's supposed to be. You can recognize how the music sounds, but it doesn't need to be perfect. And like I said, there are certain elements that you need to be learning and improving in your reading skills, and it's best if you do this every single day. There are 6 elements of reading that I want you to master in order to start to feel more confident when you're sight reading. First are landmark notes. These are notes that you can instantly recognize. You don't need to, from day one, instantly recognize every single note. It's too much information, and that's going to be too frustrating. But if you start with the F in the bass clef, the 2 middle C's between the 2 clefs, and the G and treble clef, that will get you going, and then you're going to expand on those, and just every time you add in new landmark notes, really dedicate time to instantly recognizing where those notes are and where they are on the piano. The second thing is something that everyone thinks is too easy, and so they skip over this step, but it's essential: directional reading. You need to, with 100% accuracy, know whether your music is going up, down, or staying the same. And really, you'd be surprised with how quickly you get off on this, because you're so overwhelmed with all of the other elements of reading that if you're not really dedicating attention to directional reading, you're not going to notice, you're going to miss it. The third skill you're going to commit to improving are learning your intervals. So instantly recognizing if notes are moving, if the patterns are moving by a second, third, fourth, or fifth, and then once you've mastered those intervals, moving on to sixths, sevenths, and octaves. That's a really good starting point. From there, then you can absolutely build out and learn even more, but those will get you through the majority of your repertoire. The fourth skill you're going to work on is mastering basic rhythms, just instantly being able to reproduce common rhythms that pop up a lot in music. The fifth skill that's really tricky to master is keep moving forward. No matter what happens while you're playing, you have to force your eye to keep looking at what's next. If your eye is on the note that you're playing, you're already behind, and it's going to be really hard to keep a steady tempo and to really play fluently if you're just looking exactly where you are and not looking ahead as you're going. And number 6 is developing a sixth sense with your fingers. So you really have to trust that when you command a finger to go somewhere, that you know it's going to get the note that you need. This looks like, in the beginning, having excerpts that are more or less sticking to a 5-finger pattern, and then gradually building out on that, gradually finding ways to sort of break out of those 5-finger patterns. But you have to develop that trust in your fingers, that your fingers know where to go even when you're not looking at them. Because if you're always doing this while you're sight reading, looking down, up, down, you're never going to be fluent either. I know that was a whirlwind. We're going to go much more in depth on each of those 6 things next week, so stay tuned. Be sure to subscribe and ring the bell if you haven't yet. And if you want some simple sight reading material to get you started, I have some options for you. So I have a free PDF that has 7 days of sight reading material. You'll find that in the description below. And if you get through those 7 days and you're feeling good about your progress, but you want more, then you can enroll in my 30-day sight reading bootcamp or sign up for Sight Reading RX. And that is a membership, that's a monthly thing where every single week I'm publishing new sight reading material and just really intentionally building on to each of these skills. And if you sign up for Sight Reading RX, you will just literally never run out of sight reading material. Every single week I'm adding new stuff, and it's intentionally walking you through the different elements that you need to be developing in consecutive order. So it's gradually, very gradually, getting more advanced, and really walking you through every single element that you need to be a successful sight reader. The first 20 students who sign up will get lifetime access for $3 a month. So if you're fast, you can get your hands on that deal. And again, new material is being added every week, so be sure to check it out. I'll see you next week with more sight reading goodness. Happy practicing.